Okay. I just said to Alban that I'm always nervous when I start the recording of the podcast. That might explain why I'm always a little bit awkward in the beginning and in the very end. But I hope it's not going to be an awkward interview. Very happy to have you. Maybe you can give us a short intro who you are and what you do, and then we can put on this time machine.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, earlier. So my name is Albane Dersy. I am one of the co-founders of Inbolt. We are a company developing AI for industrial robot guidance. We have offices in Detroit, Michigan, Paris, France, and Tokyo, Japan. And we're a team of almost now 50 people, scaling fast with some of the world's largest manufacturers.
Exciting, especially this kind of size of team and so many offices. But we talked about a little bit earlier before the podcast, and we talked about how important deployment is and all the boring stuff. But we will talk about this a little bit later. What I like to start with the podcast is always maybe you can tell me a little bit how this all got together, how you became the person that you are today, who inspired you, who made you furious. Some people need to prove something, but also like things that were interesting to you when you grew up, and maybe you can share a little bit about this.
It's interesting. Do you think every entrepreneur is furious about something?
Not necessarily. I'm trying
Yeah,
to discover.
yeah. No, so I come from a family of three. I am the eldest kid. I come from Paris, France, where I was born and raised. Went to university in Paris too, which was a business university. We have a very different system in France where we do, 2 years of very intense prep school that allows us with a competitive exam at the end to get into university. So I went into the France's top one university called HEC Paris. And then when I was in university, I two things happened. The first one is my first experience abroad. It was an exchange semester in the US. And I actually spent 6 months at UPenn, so in Philadelphia, studying at the Wharton Business School, which was I would say, a mind opener to realize how big the American opportunities and market is and how different from France it is. And when you think that you're successful in France, well, no one would probably know your school or university in the US. That was the first thing. And then at the end of my university, I did a double degree between an engineering school and my school. And it was with the focus on entrepreneurship. And that's how I met my two co-founders right now, Louis and Rudy. So that's how we got together. And the reason why I decided to go for that entrepreneurship degree at the end and specialization is because I didn't get accepted into the finance degree. I used to work for Roland Berger in Berlin, and I also worked at Goldman Sachs in London. I was always in the industrial teams, whether it's industrial strategy consulting or industrial M&A. And this was my internships. And after my internships, I had a job offer from Goldman in London, where I was supposed to start. That was even before I finished my studies. Then I applied for the finance degree, didn't get in because I had very bad grades. Um, but so I chose the entrepreneurship degree. And at the end of the year, when I was like 3 weeks before starting Goldman, I called the Goldman team and said, I'm going to continue my startup with my two co-founders and not join.
Quite all right. If you don't mind me asking, it takes guts to do this kind of decision, especially for a lot of people. This is the goal, and it has been your goal too, right? To apply to these kind of companies, to be in this kind of position, to go to London and work in these kind of companies and industries. But the reason why I always like to go back because I would like to decipher and unfold how this kind of yeah strength and character has been built up because I mean for some people it seems easy and the only option, but in my experience it seems like it takes a while and it takes a little bit of input to become this kind of person and being able to do this kind of thing, right? How was there something earlier on in I don't know, high school, in like I've always asking friends or surroundings, the upbringing in general, that inspired you to do this, or that not inspired, this may be a bad word, but that equipped you with the skills or showed you how to do these kind of things?
It's funny, I don't think so. And specifically, I think my parents raised me in a way that both of my parents were working. And when I was little, they were working both really, really hard and coming back home very late. We always had nannies. And for me, it was really normal. So I think the work ethic is something that was ingrained in me.
Hmm.
And then it's just being, I would say I've always been pretty bullish when it comes to doing things. I've always done a lot of things, always trying to improve myself, always trying to do best and trying to achieve the most successful thing I could achieve. So when you go to, you finish high school, they tell you, well, this is France's top university. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna try to get in. I got in. It's okay. So what's the best job you can do after university? Well, it's Goldman Sachs in London in the M&A team. All right, so I'm applying to Goldman. I'll go there. There were many steps in between, of course, but always trying to do that. I've had, yeah, great support from my family. I also think that I've been very fortunate because it's important. You were mentioning before the podcast, it's all about the menu. To order something, you need to know what's on the menu. And I've been very fortunate to know what's on the menu and what I can order. And I think in most of life, the information asymmetry is something that is very important. And life is all about getting as much information as possible so that you can make the best informed decisions for yourself. And I've been very lucky to be born and raised in a family that has a lot of information. So I knew what Goldman was. I knew what McKinsey was when I was pretty young. So I've been able to try to strive for that. And I know it's a very lucky environment to grow in. But I've also had to work really, really hard to make that happen.
The I read something like the reason why so many people are unhappy is because they know what they would like to do, but they don't do it, or they would like to they know what they would like to do, but they don't know how to do it. So you said that you've been in an environment where the menu was open, so you knew, but as you said, the hard work still needs to be done, right? And with a lot of founder over the last over 80 episodes, every now and then I had people saying I didn't know what I want to do, or maybe I was not so good in school, and then I saw something I would like to do, and then only then it occurred to me, to get there, apparently I do need to have better grades. I do need to become better in math or physics or whatever. And only then some people went back to school. But you said that you had this. I think you said you were very bullish. Was that something that was in like within you? Was that something that you were just this kind of person? Very like I have a little one and she has a very strong character. So I'm just asking, is there was something that you saw that you've been surrounded with? You were mentioning the work ethic, or was it something that you just had you just felt very early on, like this competitiveness?
I think there are two things is so the first thing is of course always a strong character, but honestly like within your family, within your like a lot of people have a strong characters who you decide to show it to, right? And how why you decide and what you decide to do with that. It's for me, I think it was proving the world that I was just not a little girl coming from the Paris suburbs. I was blonde at the time. So I really wanted to be taken seriously and not being the little blonde girl or the blonde lady or and that was something like a stereotype I've always been trying to fight and to be um and I think that people like really wrongly put some women in cases like depending on like how they talk because we have a higher pitch or the topics are interesting because there might be different topics that people talk about. So I've always been trying to fight that. And I think maybe one of the earliest way to see is that I started doing boxing when I was in high school or college. Yes, very early on, I was doing French boxing. It was in a crappy room in a suburb it was basically in a cave in the suburbs of Paris. It's where the French top boxers, amateur boxers come from my gym. So it was a great experiences. people from like everywhere around Paris were coming to train here. Classes were every night during the week. It was people from like, I don't know, if I was 15 at the time until like 70 years old. And you were basically getting hit on the face with people kicking because it's French boxing every night. So I think that's I would say an early manifestation of like how much I wanted to prove that I wasn't just a little girl.
I mean, like I said earlier on for the podcast, I'm having this kind of conversation mainly for myself because the podcast is still very small. I'm gonna show this episode to my wife because she's my little one is just 2, but I told her already because I was doing boxing or Muay Thai when I was much younger, like for 10 years. And so it was always a big part of my life. And there's a specific dynamic and smell in these kind of places. So, and when I said to her, when she will be older, I will get her into this kind of boxing environment. She says, so why? And I mean, this is a perfect example because getting punched in the face has, I think, more benefits that the majority of people are aware of. You're a founder of a company now, and that means you get punched in the face very often by customers, investors, technical problems. And you still, every day you stay up, every day you fight, every try to push a little bit further. In sales, everyone who's in sales needs to have a love of getting punched in the face. No, no, I don't need it. I have it. It's not good. Like, no, 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 you need to love it. So it's great that you gave away this little anecdote. And it's funny. So is that something that you still do?
No, I stopped when I launched Inbolt because I was getting punched so much in the face during the day. I didn't want to get punched in the face at night.
Fair
But
point.
I continued during when I was at university. I kept doing it. When I was at Wharton, I kept doing it. It was English boxing at the time. I haven't started training for the not professional, but for competitive boxing when I was during my last year of studies. And it was, I think, one of the hardest thing I've ever done because people do punch you really, really hard, even though you're not really supposed to. But no, I think, and then coming back to your daughter, it's really important to write. I've been raised in an environment where like girls and boys are no different. And if I wanted to go boxing, my mother could like maybe she was a bit scared that I would come back home with like a big nose and not be pretty or, but that was always not a discussion really. And I've always been very much pushed by my father to do a lot of like hiking, extreme outdoor sports, everything, climbing, boxing. Nothing was out of scope. Running, and it's more about you're trying to mimic what your parents are doing. So lots of sports, really hardworking mother who's doing like insane hours in finance when she had 3 kids. So yeah, I think both of these examples really drove me.
Thanks for sharing. Um, you were mentioning that that you got together with your co-founders before you like while you were still studying.
Yeah.
Robotics is an interesting space, and the hype is now. But this, what you're talking about, is a few years ago. How was it in the early days to get into the space and not knowing what's out? Because the hype today is very real. Everyone would like to get into robotics now because it's like it's hot topic, right? But being very early on when it's not so sexy, when it's not so available, and how was that? How were the early you said industry? Yeah, how was it to get in contact with that and exploring this world for you?
Well, it's interesting because manufacturing is a very opaque world, right? And robotics has been out there for what, 40 years? It's not a new market. These companies like Fanuc and Kuka and ABB are basically like have been here longer on Earth than I have been. What we did really early on is just trying to visit as many manufacturers as possible in the automotive industry, in the aerospace industry, in every possible industries. And I mean, robotics is not new. The problems associated with robots are not new. So the customers still had problems they needed to find a solution for, and that's what we created Inbolt. And now, of course, the wave, like the hype with AI is here, and it's making it easier for people to use commodity models to get into the market and solve problems for the end customers. But these customers had the same problem before, and these customers now maybe what has happened recently, the great thing that has happened is that with the AI hype, everyone wants to have AI in their plant. So they open the doors for you. They're not as, I would say, not risk adverse, but like they were like a bit like skeptical about like, would it work? So we did show it was working a few years ago, but now they open the doors even wider to get in.
I was trying to draw some conclusions, some learnings from the podcast, so personal one, but also business-wise, from founders. And you said something that is very important and still very underrated. I've been to the Slash Heilbronn 2 weeks ago, I think, and I talked to a few very young people young people who were asking about what you just said. How do I make the first steps? What is the most important thing in the beginning? And I had a few people working on the technology, and I was mentioning what you just said. My question was, okay, how many people have you talked to? Was it 5? Was it 50? Was it 500? Like the customer, potential future customer, right?
Yeah.
And the lower the number, the higher the risk you fail, because I mean, it seems obvious, right? But apparently it's not, especially when you enter the industry, then it's obvious that it's not obvious for you. But even I talked to a few people that were older, like someone made an intro to me. Hey, I've been an exit founder and I founded a few companies already. And then we were having a discussion. And then again, I said, okay, but the validation of the problem, how many people you talk to, right? So I think maybe you can share how it was. You were mentioned different industries, very hard to get into. But you seem to have done very good groundwork in developing the product, like getting into the factories. And so how was that for you to get the intros and really getting to the shop floor level?
People like start like, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can automate outreach on LinkedIn, and people are more than happy to invite you on site and walk you through their factory and talk about their problems. We have been outreaching to so many people in such an automated way that doors were open. We can keep doing that. It's all about outreach to build momentum. It's not hard at all. And we don't rely on intros at all. Like now we have intros and referrals and people saying, oh, you should use Inbolt and so and so and so. But the beginning, it's just like you open the internet, you reach out to people. It's just about the number of messages you're going to send, the number of emails, and the number of phone calls. I am on site every day of the week almost. I wear safety shoes to drinks with friends. I have always like a yellow jacket and the safety glasses and the earplugs in my backpack. It's just like you have to be on site. Because manufacturing industry, what's really, really hard is that you're never going to be the end customer of your product, you as a builder. So you cannot imagine what are the problems that the customer can have because you will never experience them. You don't have industrial robots, you're not building things, you're not manufacturing things, and you don't have the pressure of throughput or reliability. So unless you go on site and you meet the right people, because the other thing is that information is highly fragmented in that industry. It's opaque and fragmented. So you need to speak to as many people within the same factory or the same plant as possible. And that will give you roughly an idea of what the actual problem is. But it's a numbers thing.
I think this will be one of those episodes, because early on you asked me which is what are my favorite episodes. I think this one is very dense when it comes to business advice. Because again, you said something, the magic word here is volume, right? The volume will help you, like quantity will lead to quality if you do it right. And one of the last sentences where you need to ask as many people as possible from the same plant, because the fragmented knowledge part is real. Everyone is working in silos, which is has been part of the success in the past, because when you are iterating the same product over decades in automotive, then you get highly specialized people, right? Someone who is in charge for just that one single piece. And he's focused and paid for just like building this piece as good as possible. So that might be a chance, and I've seen this in manufacturing. So I share the same experience here, that there can be two people working right next to each other, like in cells. And then I'll ask, so okay, who is the person who has this kind of work piece before you, like in the process? Yeah, he's right next to me. And then how often do you talk? Never. So and it seems crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the companies, and this is one of the reasons why in Europe, and maybe you can share a little bit here later on, as you have been expanded to the US. In Europe, I have the feeling that this specialization and the silo thinking and working is preventing them from innovating, right?
Toyota in the US, people work in the same building. They're responsible for different lines that don't talk to each other. So it's very similar. But what is important to realize here is that so outreaching and getting information is a volume thing, but you still have to sell early on. You're never going to have the same experience and the same feedback from the market between asking just questions and installing a product in the factory. You're probably not going to aim right with your first product or your first project, but the lessons learned will be just invaluable. So you have to be willing to sell, or even for free if needed, to do something in the plant as early as possible, even if the tech is not ready, even if whatever reason you need to be there for two reasons. First of all, it gives you a reason to be on site all the time, which means you will meet many people, and it will really deepen your knowledge of, like, first of all, how to make a solution work in that industry. And maybe there are a ton of features that you would not have thought about, but that are critical to really build a product, but also to meet new people and really like try to expand your knowledge of that, all the different processes in the plant. And the last thing about robotics and the robot market is that you were saying it's a volume market. I mean, we're not here to talk about one robot in the factory. On average, a factory has 1,000 robots. That's the thing. And on average, this factory is going to have, in the coming years, 1,000 more. So it's just like it's a numbers game. And that's what people have sometimes when you see like one robot doing one nice thing. People don't realize what's behind. It's that Fanuc, Kuka, ABB, they don't sell one robot. They sell hundreds of robots per year to one single plant.
So it seems like not only business wise, but product wise as well. We have some lessons here. Thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Um, I work with a lot of startups in robotics and AI, and I think I said this on the podcast at least twice or three times. So I'm going into the lab, and then I'm asking, so how many of you guys have been to the plant yet? Silence.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, so how are you going to know what these people need, right? Yeah, I mean, the interface is not important for us at the moment. We will figure out this later on. I said, dude, if the operator doesn't know how your system works, and it doesn't like it, or the person doesn't like it, or it's friction, there's a lot of friction, they're not going to use it. Somebody's going to buy it, somebody install it, but going to use it. So it's very, very, and you said regarding the features, right? There's nice to have features, and there's must have features. How do you know about what kind of features you need to develop in the first place if you're not talking to people who are going to actually use the product on site?
Yeah, I do have a different mindset on that. So first of all, onboarding at Inbolt is everyone goes in the factory. Even our R&D team goes in factory, our product team goes in factory, our QA team goes in factory. You come at Inbolt, you basically have safety shoes on your first day. That's a thing. This is one of the core value of Inbolt, is like be on site. With no question asked. Right now, I think we have almost 15 people on site doing deployments. And some of them are in Macedonia, some of them are in Italy, some of them are in Alabama. It's crazy. What I think is, and there's something about robotics, is the people, for starters, in many cases, the end customer is never going to use your product because they want you or someone else to install it on the line. When it's running on the line, they're never going to use it. They're never going to touch it. They want to see it run at 99.99% reliability. But if you think about, robots or products, it's system integrators actually deploying the product in production. So when you build a robotic product, do you need an interface or do you need a technology that works? And sometimes building an interface takes so much longer because who's going to be the end user? Most of the time, the end user is going to be a system integrator, or it's going to be you first, your deployment team. So you just have to focus on the technology that just really, really well works. And that's what we do. I mean, of course, the interface is critical because it enables more independence and more customers to be able to deploy your product by themselves. But the first step is just getting into a plant and showing that it works 99.99% of the time, no matter who installs it.
True. I might phrase it different, wrongly here. What I was trying to say is that the technology is one part, but you were talking about like the adoption of the technology, like making it work, because the value needs to be shown first. And even though value is a buzzword these days, that is a bit hollow. If it's not, if it's not for the people who install it and use it and pay for it, it needs to be very clear why they're going to use it, right? So is it saving me money? It will increase my quality. Will it bring me more uptime? So there's a lot of things that are in the focus. You were saying something that is also for people coming from academia. Let's say let's use that example. System integrators is something that is a black spot for them. They have no experience, and as you if you describe very, very clearly here, very often it will not be the end user who is going to work with the product or who install the product. It will be system integrators who will do who will bring the turnkey solution, right? How is that? How is that for you? Was that something that you also needed to discover? Did you had some experienced people on the team? Or how was that?
No, I mean, you discover really, really fast. I mean, we think we found out on the first day in the factory, and what you'll realize is that there's system integrator for everything that you might think of. I mean, people have system integrator even for software like SAP or ERPs, or so there is going to be a system integrator at any given time for a big enterprise to always use them. But in robotics, robotics is a sum of components, right? And you always need someone to put that sum of components and actually do the actual installation work on the shop floor. For us, we usually work directly with the end customer, and then the end customer will purchase our solution, and they will ask the system integrator to deploy our solution, and we will support the system integrator to guarantee 100% success of every installation that we do. But it's a collaboration in the end.
For people who are in the lab, I mean, I see this in my work very often. This is something that a lot of people are not afraid of, but not really thinking about and not really paying attention to, and very focused on the core tech. And you said also the tech needs to work first, right? But all the other parts, the boring parts, the difficult parts, this is something that has been, that I see is very early. I mean, it's neglected very often. But did you guys really realize this very early on? So you made it very, core of your strategy?
For us, I think very early on we had to work with system integrator that were doing, they were doing the gripper, they were doing the install of the robot base. And yeah, I mean, very early on, you realize that if your cable gets cut, you need to find an easier way to swap the cables for the end customer of the system integrator. And every camera is going to have a cable. But you don't have to think of like, when basically we started selling first, and then going on site, we learned everything, and it's just about going as fast as possible then to make sure that your system is going to be reliable for that first installation. But it's hard to have all the right answers before going on site and before selling.
So you would agree that selling first before really building the product until it's 100% finished is definitely the way to go.
Oh yeah, even in robotics. And people get scared because customer says, yeah, my line cannot stop if this and this. And then I ask like 99.9% reliability, and then you get scared, right? Well, every line has downtime. There is no line on Earth that works 100% of the time at all time. There is always going to be a cable getting cut, a sensor getting stuck, a gripper getting closed, and it's a sum of reasons. And I don't know why the customers are putting an insane amount of pressure on like startups just to scare them and to just test them, but it's all right. I mean, you have to crash your first robot, and then after you crash your first robot on the line, you are like, oh, anything can happen.
The fear of this requirement of 99.99%, to where's the product actually and not being scared of. I think this is one another very valuable session here because you do need to, in selling, there is a delta between what you promise and what you're aiming at and where the product is actually, right? So my advice always is look not for customer, but look for people who can be partners in the early stage. So helping you lift up the product from your 88%, 92, 95%, and aiming to the 99.999%. Because if you're aiming for those 99.999% in the lab, it will take much longer and you're most likely never going to reach it. Versus if you, as you said, kind of crush a few robots on site, but you will get there much faster.
Yeah. But now we do have the 99.99% for every installation that we do. And usually because the overall efficiency of a robot station is a sum of components. And sometimes the efficiency of the robot station is just because the gripper gets jammed or it's just like, so we get 99.99%, but some of the downtime might be caused by the sum of things, really.
Expanding the company, was that something that you had in mind very early on? Because with limited resources, I guess a team always trying to prevent to splitting themselves up as in such a big way, because we talked about service and maintenance early on.
We had no choice. Our first deployment was in Hungary. Our second one was in Poland. Our third one was in the US. And then probably our 10th one was in Japan. So by definition, the robotics markets, the world's largest manufacturers, also the world's largest buyers of robots, and they have the largest installed base of robots. But they're global companies, right? I mean, Toyota has like 700 factories all over the world. So, and Stellantis 62. So you have no choice but to go where the need is, where the money is, where your customer needs you first, because you need also to reduce the sales cycle time as much as possible. So you go where you can, and you have no choice but to be global from day one. And regarding service, it's just about having great relationship with the customer on site, trying to get a remote access in your computer that you're deploying as much as possible to do remote support, and flying. I think some people don't realize that the manufacturing market is a super travel intensive market. People are flying every time, all the time, to go, like all the deployment teams or the R&D teams, the sales team. They like sometimes we're just comparing miles, and we meet in the lounges, or you're always flying.
I think this is also something that when you're very young, something that you might not have experienced yet, so and you're not aware of, right? Because these kind of technologies have been developed in labs, coming out of the university. You might have been to a conference or two, but as you said, if you're in sales, if you're in deployment, then as the plans are all over the world, it needs to be part of your day. I mean, thanks for giving so many interesting insights for people, especially when you're starting your startup. You guys have been around now for a few years. I think it's definitely some things that they don't even know when we come back to the analogy of what's on the menu, and not realizing how complex some topics are. Something that I'm always interested in, the you have a background in finance and in the tech part. Very often people come to me and says, okay, how do I get into robotics? How do I make the transition or the bridge from like this kind of background to a tech background? You said that you guys met in university. How was it that you guys came together?
So our last year of degrees, it was a double degree between HEC Paris and Polytechnique. And so basically so we were 120 students. And the first assignment of the class was for a month to build a fake startup and then present this project to a panel of jury. They had an algorithm putting students together by groups of three, depending on random criteria. So which background you had, did you have a driving license, girls, boys, that kind of thing. So it's an algorithm that put us together. And we had to build a fake startup. But from the first week of university, the last year, Inbolt was born. And what we did and what really set us apart, I think the reason why we decided to continue Inbolt after we graduated is that we played the game so well during that last year. We reached out to so many people. We went on site. We signed our first contract. We hadn't incorporated yet. We didn't have a technology. So we've been always extremely customer centered and I would say, yes, sales centered from the very beginning. And then and then finance to robotics. I mean, my job is just selling and deploying and basically solving my customer's problem. Robotics is not hard. It's like any other industry. I mean, tomorrow can be nuclear and then the day after can be crypto. It's just about asking questions.
This is a dense interview. I think a lot of things that are very obvious to you will not be so obvious to. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and I do see that the majority of them haven't covered half the surface that you are covering in this podcast here, even though they are in the third or fourth year of the company, having a few. But it seems like you really absorb the. Like the ground and basic things about these kind of things that needs to be done to get a company that's running. Another thing that is interesting to me, you said that this had been forced together by an algorithm, but obviously something clicked, right? And the idea of Inbolt, you said, was born on the first week. So and was it that idea? So the things that you're doing today, and how did that got together?
So do you want a backstory of Inbolt?
Yeah,
The
this is why
first
we're here.
product that we did wasn't exactly that at all. We actually only started selling in robotics 2 years ago. We used to do the same technology, which is real-time tracking and guidance, but it was for workers at the time. We used to put the same camera, that small camera, and we used to mount it onto tightening tools or torque wrenches or sanding tools. So it was that big. It was actually the same camera that we put on robots. And we used to mount it on the tools to really try to locate where the worker was doing a task on a part and guide the worker on like which bolt to tighten, hence Inbolt, by the way, intelligent bolt. And so we were doing that, but because we spend so much time on site selling and going and visiting factories, so many of our customers told us, well, what you guys are doing is great, but honestly, we're just investing so much in robotics. If we had your technology to get robots, that would be amazing. And we had that feedback so many times. So we're like, all right, let's pivot. So we raised our seed round. And the first board meeting after that seed round, we said, all right, guys, so we're gonna pivot, by the way. We're gonna change industry. And instead of helping workers, we're gonna help robots. And it's gonna be the same product, way less constrained because initially we had to have an embedded system with it had to be battery powered, which is super hard. It's like basically reinventing the iPhone. With a robot, you can have a cable. Perfect. No need for a battery now. We could have a computer on the side. Perfect. No need for embedded computation. So we started like on the hardest problem to solve, and going into robotics was first of all a bigger market, and all the R&D that we had done on our initial product was just a huge booster in terms of technological differentiator when we got into robotics. And then so we just started selling. We did a bit of R&D to adjust our existing product for robots, but we started selling in 2024. Now we're in 2025 and it's growing really so fast. But I would say honestly, Inbolt we're just like execution machines. Like it's right now it's all about execution, selling, deploying, customer success, keeping on doing R&D, adding new features, new applications, and then this is how we scale.
I'm still impressed because when I work with a lot of startups, one of the hardest questions to answer is, what are you focusing first? There's so many things to be done, right? And everything is prior one. And when everything is prior one, then actually nothing is prior one, right? So, and you have a team, you guys are 50, but I've seen 30 people, I've seen 120 people, and same problems. So the question is how to get rid of the problems and how to tackle them, how to focus, and how to, as you said, you are executing machine, but to execute, you do need to know what you would like to do. I mean, in my opinion, right? And a lot of people are getting how do you say this? Getting lost in the executing part because you don't know what to execute first. So how is it for you guys to really focus on what matters?
Well, money. I mean, P1 is what gets you money, and what gets you money is it's simple. It's selling. So for us, P1 is your customer. Your customer is your best customer. That's the only thing. So P1 is always going to be deploying successfully an application. And if you have like some like it's whatever you've sold, you need to make sure it works 100% of the time because we're in an industry where if you sell one system successfully, the customers can buy hundreds of them or 200 of them. There is a stickiness in the market and a land and expand motion that is just huge in manufacturing. So whenever you're lending with one customer, you have to make sure that that lending is successful. You can't afford to lose one customer. So P1, this is that. And the rest of it is, just like this is always going to be P1, making sure that what we do works. And of course, there's some limitations in the technology, or actually not really anymore, but it's really about making sure that whatever you're selling works.
I mean, the question comes up if you have more than one customer and how to focus on the right customer and how to focus on which of the problems of your different customers you're going to solve first, right? Because this is where the startup found itself. And I think here being able to make the right decision and not who's screaming the loudest of your customers, right? Or you have the closest relationship. So, but who's the most valuable for you? Because in the very end, if you have 5 customers and every 5 systems are very hard to integrate or have problems, then it will be very hard to split your engineering team among those 5 people.
Yeah. So first of all, our deployment team is our biggest team because of indeed to be able to support our more than 5 customers. But no, I think for us, it's about your target customer. And the great thing about the automotive industry is that every customer is really building a car the same way. So for us, we focus on key target customers, which we know that if we deploy successfully, they can buy hundreds of more systems for our solution. And that's what we focus on. Once again, it comes down to how much money you can make by customer.
I had a few people on the podcast that are not doing exactly the same that you do, but something similar or in the same industry, obviously. And and I'm talking about my own experience here as well. It's not as easy as if you make run system run at a customer, and I've been in customer success for 2 years at a similar company, to expand the product at the same customer, like the 100 system to the same customer. I mean, what I've seen, and I've known people from companies that sell yellow robots and red robots and blue robots. It's very hard to unlock this 100 unit systems, right? What I've seen, because you have a lot of plans, obviously, or a lot of lines, obviously, but you have a lot of people who are responsible for those lines. You have a lot of people who are responsible for the different factories and the different lines, and everyone would like to have a saying, and everyone is very eager to show that their line is very specific. But I'm very happy especially happy for you, if you tell me your experience is totally different.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's hard, but it's actually also very, very easy in a way because, I mean, it depends on which problem you're targeting and how you're addressing it. But there are 2 things. First of all, our solution can address what we call the existing base of robots, so the retrofits, which are a lot of robots, but also the new installations. The reason why we can target such large numbers of expand within our customers is that we're not waiting for the new lines to be built or the new robots to be installed, is that we can show value on their existing robots not performing 100% all the time. So on average, we show reduction of downtime by 90%, and we work on body shop lines on these big robots. And these body shop lines have like hundreds and thousands of robots. So that's why we are really talking about volume here. And of course, then it becomes about account-based marketing, using your success stories, discussing with the right people, going on the factory level, but also on the group level. You have to do it all. It's multi-threading at its best. And you can't do a lot of accounts like that. But the ones that you do well, they are the ones who can do volume.
Thanks. Thank you for your insights. If you look at the hype that is happening around, and you just mentioned this earlier on the podcast regarding the AI, and it can be a door opener for people who are desperate to see if they could be somehow get value out of that? Is it or was it or is it hard for people who have like very high expectation, like AI will solve all my problems? So there's someone who is offering an AI solution here, but because of the reality, things are a little bit more complicated and sometimes a little bit more difficult. Is there a gap between expectations from customer and what you guys are showing and delivering?
No, 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 not at all. AI is really just to have an, I would say, high-level discussion with the top management because they want to see that their company is actually working in AI, putting AI in manufacturing, and then be able to promote that and show the other like big companies that they are actually doing this in manufacturing. But on the ground, on the shop floor level, we don't even need to talk about AI. We just show that our product works. And honestly, it's just that it's you choose the word that you want to choose depending on the end customer. But it's true that for the maintenance manager, we're just reducing downtime by 90% with 99.99% reliability. That's it. And we've done it in so many other plants, similar in the same group or in other car makers that we have so many videos and success stories that it's not about like they're not even asking questions of is it going to work?
The hype around humanoid robots at the moment, because I've talking to a lot of upcoming humanoid robot companies, and then the discussion: do you really need a humanoid component, like humanoid in the factory, or would it? Is there other solutions, as you said, with existing robot on your alliance that could do just the same job? So this hype around humanoid robots, is that something that you, as an outsider and some outsider in terms of you don't building a humanoid, but an insider in terms of you deploying robots on site. Is that something that is always surprising for you how this discussion is being held?
No, I think humanoid. There are two things about humanoid. There's first of all the technology, which is basically a humanoid. The type of technology that are being used in humanoid right now allows a robot to be autonomous. So you don't need any input from the line to tell you is it car A or car B, and then the robot will automatically decide to generate its own motion and trajectory to perform the task it has to do, right? And there is minimal input from either the systems or the end user. That's the hype we really like at Inbolt. It's the technology more than the form factor. Then the form factor about a humanoid or a six-axis robot it's just a form factor in the end. I think what's going to be interesting about humanoid is that they can indeed move around and they have the type of like end effector or I would say gripper that the fingers are also very interesting to see. But ultimately it's just a form factor. What really is the big difference for humanoid is that they're autonomous. That kind of technology can go in all types of robots, whether it's humanoid, six axis, two axis, whatever axis robots is out there.
Interesting. I mean, I'm very thankful that you gave such a like industrial masterclass here on how to get things going. So what I'm aiming with the podcast is always to show what's possible out there, because when you see what's possible, then it's always easier to aim for that. At least that has been my perception. We were talking about menus before, right? So if you see, okay, somebody else can do this and that, this is the approach I might need to take. For a lot of people that are, and here again, I'm working with pre-seed, seed, and Series A startups. So very early on, product validation, product market fit, call it as you like, and deploying and getting customers, pilot projects. I think this was very well communicated and very well described. I think that was full of a lot of learnings, and I'm very happy that you said yes. I met Rudy in, I think it was the GDC in Paris. I asked him, and he said, "You know what? You should talk to my co-founder. I think she's a much better fit." And I'm very happy that you said yes, because I think this was one of the most dense and interesting and informative educational podcasts that we had. And I'm very happy that you were talking about these kind of things so openly and insightful.
Thank you. It's my daily life.
And thanks for sharing this with an online audience. Take care. I'm very happy to see more of you guys on social media, and I think you're doing a great job in showing that with the right approach and focusing hard on solving some problems, it's still possible for a startup to get into these industries that are very hard to get into.
Oh yeah, and they want you to work with them. they love it. So it's actually, it's just like, I would say the only advice is not to not be scared. It's easier than we think. It's not easy, but it's not as hard as we think. Well, it's hard, but it will be okay. That's what I mean. It will be okay.
Okay, good. I think this is a good way to end this podcast. I am, like I said, I'm very thankful, and this is a good way to end it.
Thanks, Olive.
Take care. Bye bye.